Surprise, surprise, surprise. Patrick Mahomes is going to the AFC Championship for the millionth consecutive year. 100% success rate since he became starting quarterback.
Absolutely absurd.
Especially with that ref.
Oh, what was that,
Roughing
Mario?
the passer.
Were you saying roughing the passer?
Personal foul, roughing the passer.
What was
Every
that?
time.
Holding.
Okay.
You can't get touched.
Why don't you elaborate a little bit? They won the game 23-14. Sounds like the Chiefs just walked to it.
Oh, I mean, it was a dominant Chiefs and referee win. I mean, it's everything we expected.
Yeah.
Listen, Chiefs are a great team. Fantastic team. I don't want to take that away.
15-2 regular season.
15-2 regular season.
Didn't lose at home.
Didn't lose at home. They'll never lose at home. It's just the way it works. Don't ask me why. No, I don't want to take it away from Patrick Mahomes and this team. Unfortunately, you know, they kind of do it to themselves, especially last game. You know, Patrick kind of like doing some flopping and stuff, which didn't really look good. I mean, in my opinion, he's too good for that. He doesn't even need to do it. And they don't need help from the refs. But last game, obviously, there were two really big calls that went in favor of the Chiefs, as you know, a lot of calls have gone this season.
Yeah.
Which people have kind of noticed a trend. Even players are being very outspoken about it. And I mean, you had announcers. I mean, you had whenever they'd bring in the rules analyst, Gene Sarator, Mike Pereira. I mean, you had Troy Aikman and Joe Buck, who are, in my opinion, some of the two best commentators in football. They've been doing it as long as I've been watching football, and extremely impartial, being openly just kind of annoyed and frustrated with the officiating.
Yep.
So that's been kind of highlighting the Chiefs' win. But let's get away from the rest for a second. Texas didn't help themselves either. I mean, special teams was abysmal. Some questionable kind of choices, going for it on fourth down, missing kicks. And Chiefs, the one thing about beating the Chiefs, like, besides the referees, like, you have to play perfect because this team just executes perfection. They've just figured out how to be a winning football team. Andy Reid's a great coach. Patrick Mahomes is amazing. And they're going to control the game, control the tempo, match whatever you're doing. If you want to play a physical game, they can go physical. If they need to go hurry up offense and Patrick just dissects you, they can do that too. So it was always a Chiefs win. I never believed for a second this Texans team was ever going to win this game. But you know, they're shout out Texans defense. They played their absolute tails off. I was very, very impressed. I didn't think their defense would be able to kind of put up a fight like that. Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, they were fantastic. But yeah, I mean, just better team won at the end of the day.
Yeah, I just don't think the Chiefs played better than the Texans did. I mean, if you look at any stat for the game, like, you can pick your stat, whether you want passing yards. It was
What about penalties?
penalties, 8 for 82 on the Texans, 4 for 29 on the Chiefs.
So they did better.
They murdered on the
Cleaner
penalties. But yeah, I mean, CJ Stroud threw for 245, Mahomes threw for 177. The Texans rushed for 149, averaging 5 yards a carry and a touchdown. The Chiefs were 22 for 50, averaging 2 yards per carry and a touchdown. They dominated time of possession. They had more first downs. Like, basically the entire game, besides special teams, was kind of owned by the Texans. But the Chiefs just know how to convert, whether it's, Kelsey up the middle for first downs. I know you said it. I don't want to harp on the refs thing, but it's kind of depressing when it feels like games like this are an unwinnable spot for the opposing team. Regardless, like, they outplayed them according, more first downs, time of possession, yards through the air, yards through the ground, literally everything.
Yeah.
And they lost by 9 points, so 2 scores. And it's just like, I don't know, it felt like, the Texans definitely shot themselves in the foot, but neither team turned over the ball. This was a weird spot. The Chiefs are moving on, but yeah, I think, CJ Stroud definitely didn't have a great year, but I don't think he played bad in this game. And yeah, the Chiefs just
Two best games were the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what he does. He's proven he can play decent in the playoffs. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, the Chiefs are moving on. Ryan, I know you are a big fan of this Chiefs team. Did you see anything different? You think we're way off on our evaluation there?
Yeah, I disagree that the Texans outplayed them. I think the eye test, maybe on stats wise, but eye tests, when like things matter, when defenses need to make a stand, when offense has to get first
You have to
downs,
convert
like
third downs,
the big
yeah.
plays. I mean, I don't think were the Chiefs down for a second of the game, or they go wire to wire.
I don't believe so.
So
I
I'm
don't
saying
think they were
like
ever down.
Unless they were ever down 3-0.
So it's like, yeah, like the stats could say more, but I just saw like the Chiefs. It just feels like watching the replays and everything. The Chiefs just dominated the game, And I just think coaching is so big in the NFL. When you get these teams are so good, even like other games, it's literally just who outperforms as a coach because the players are there for a reason, in my opinion. And I just thought that this Chiefs team, I mean, they just do what they do every single year. And like, all they do is win, and a lot of the times they do cover. And especially last year in the playoffs, they were on the road. Now they come home. They go. It doesn't matter where they are; they're going to win. So like, if you give up 8 sacks, miss field goals, don't get fourth and down conversions, have bad coaching plays, you're going to lose 100% of the time. You need to cut those at least in half to have a chance. And I didn't think Texans ever had a chance. So.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with kind of parts of everyone there. Because I do agree. I think, like if you're getting to 8 sacks, then you're putting yourself in a position to, win the ball game, but bad coaching will lose you a game. But it's also like, when you look at the entire round of playoffs, Texans were penalized 8 times, like we said, for 83 yards. That's 3 more penalties than the next highest team with 5. It's like, I don't know. I honestly understand some of those calls if it was like regular season, but playoff football, man, like you just got to let these guys play. And it's like, I don't know. I think it kind of is tarnishing the brand of the NFL with, like Mario said, it's like you're falling for the flops of Patrick Mahomes that don't look great in the hindsight.
I think they'll clean it up next round.
I hope
they
so.
have to.
I hope
They-
so
if-
because
if
I mean,
Josh Allen plays Patrick Mahomes like from a yards perspective. The Bills, if the stats look like this, and the penalties look like that, and then the Bills lose and the Chiefs move on, it's
riots.
going to be
Yeah, I mean, if
right.
it's 2 weeks in a row, it's a different conversation.
Catastrophe.
A one-off game.
Yeah.
I mean, refs are human too. They just have bad calls, and I mean, it's Patrick Mahomes. Like he's
Just
facing
funny that
weak,
fits
so.
in
Also, they
narrative
didn't
so
call the one
perfectly.
that's like
I mean,
the flop. They
No,
called
they
the
didn't call
bang
the
bang
flop.
play that they're looking real. I was just talking to them.
But the flop.
They're allowed to review those
Patrick
plays, by the
Mahomes
way.
was trying to sell a call.
100% agree.
And like I'm just saying, my personal opinion. I think he's too good for that. I don't think he needs to do that.
I agree.
So
I don't know
I
when.
agree.
When did he become? Like, when did he start really doing this? Because I don't know. Maybe he always did this, and I just didn't notice it as much. It just feels so exaggerated. Maybe it's exaggerated because his stats aren't phenomenal anymore. Like, it used to be like Mahomes is going out and throwing for 300 and 3 touchdowns. That is when he had Tyreek Hill and like younger Kelsey. But it feels like these games, like he was 16 of 25 for 177 yards. That was like, by all accounts, not a good quarterback game. He had under for completions, under for touchdowns, under for yards, under for everything, and he's like flopping when he's out of bounds. I don't know. It just feels like he's not trying or needing to play well, and he's just expecting things to happen.
I feel like
I mean,
in
if you
general,
look at
a
it
lot
though,
of
for
quarterbacks do
playoff
that.
football, if
Like,
you look at it, the 3 of the 4 teams that lost this weekend were 3 teams that turned the ball over. So it just comes down to like execution. You just have to be smart with the ball. He doesn't need to go out and throw for 300 yards or whatever if the game doesn't require that.
Yeah.
If his defense is holding the Texans and they're up by a touchdown, or if they're up by 2 field goals, like there's no need to go out there, put yourself in harm's way.
No,
like,
I wasn't
You just go out and execute.
Yeah, I
and-
wasn't complaining about this game specifically. I was just saying, I feel like it's more noticeable, like those type of things, when he's not putting up those numbers.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like it happens to every
yeah,
quarterback.
possibly.
It's just the difference is that it actually gets called for Patrick Mahomes. But like you'll see that all the time is like quarterbacks, if they're ever on the ground, they're always going to look at the ref immediately and be like, "Yo, where's my flag?" But Patrick Mahomes just happens to get those
Well,
flags.
quarterback
more
is
often
also
than not.
the most
So,
protected position in that.
for sure.
So,
And
like,
there's a reason why they look to arrest. But again, I just think it happens more often to Patrick Mahomes than others.
Yeah, I mean, I know
So
we're
it
going to
seems
talk
like
about
it.
the Bills-Ravens game, but I think that next week's game is going to be just electric. And we're going to pick the game in a second.
Hopefully,
but
hopefully it's
this
crazy.
should, I hope it doesn't. We're not saying the same thing next week. for
It
this
won't.
game.
It won't be.
I don't think
hope-
it will.
I hope
It'll
they-
be a completely
I
different
just hope
game.
they
We've
let
never
the-
talked about it ever in the playoff history before. This was one game you've ever talked about before.
About the Mahomes and the
Mahomes
refs.
have never got. He's
The-
actually been the least used penalties against for a quarterback.
I don't think that's true.
100%. They
Where
showed
do
it for
you
the
find
past
that?
5 years.
Where'd you find that
it was,
stat?
It was all over. Like,
That they're the least penalized team.
in the playoffs.
There's no way.
No.
I mean,
Mahomes-
no. I believe they're the least penalized team. I'm saying their opponents have to. There's no way their opponents have the least amount of penalties in the playoffs.
Patrick Mahomes was not thrown a flag for his offense the least amount of times in the past 5 years as a playoff team. when they
Yeah, I
when
mean,
they
I
played as the
believe
league
it.
games.
It's really
They
just-
this never happened.
it's
until
just this year.
Last year they went on the road and they won every game fair. They never had anything wrong.
I mean, this has been a narrative for at least 2 years now.
that's absurd.
It has been.
Literally absurd. The
not.
beginning of his entire career was the Brady getting lucky with the
Yeah, no,
offside.
it's-
I'm not saying- I'm not saying
you're
you're-
literally last year. No
No.
one ever talked about Mahomes. We can go through the fucking every playoff game we discussed. We can go
wrong.
through them. You never mentioned a penalty. I guarantee you.
I think you're just wrong.
I bet you
because
$100 you never mentioned a penalty during any single.
I don't know
game.
what I personally said.
Exactly,
in the
you would've
playoffs
talked
last year.
about
No,
it
but
if it
I'm
was
saying,
that important.
I'm saying this has been a narrative
this
for
year.
more than a
this
year.
year.
No,
It has
disagree.
been with the Chiefs. You're saying this is the first
You've
year.
never brought it up once, and neither have
I'm
any
not
of us.
talking about me. I'm
No
saying
one's ever brought it up.
I'm not the one who creates the narratives for the sports world. I'm saying the sports world has been complaining about the Chiefs and the refs for more than this season. If you think that's not true, you're wrong.
In the playoffs, this is the first time ever.
So you're saying last regular season, then people were
It
complaining
even
about
wasn't
it.
a
And
big deal. We weren't
The
talking
two
about
games
it that
in the
much.
AFC playoffs.
We weren't talking about it that much as it is now. Every single week is a Chiefs won because of the refs. Last year was never talked about every single week Chiefs winning because of the refs.
I agree. It's
no
become,
one's talking about
I agree. I think
Maybe
it's
the
become
Super
a
Bowl.
bigger,
It's not
like,
true.
kind of snowballing
you.
joke for, like,
Or
just
Three
the
other
mass
people
media.
on the
but-
pod.
So
that we
wait,
talk
okay,
every
hold on,
week.
real quick. So everyone here agrees last season there was not an issue with the Chiefs.
As much as-
so
So, okay.
I want to get this on film so then next week we can go. I
Wait,
can take a look and we can
really
recap
quick.
this.
I think what happened is I think it's similar to like a snowball effect where yeah, it probably was being talked about in smaller circles here and there for the past 2-3 years, but it's gained so much more momentum and people kind of use it as a joke. And so, and it kind of gets more traction because of that. And so I think that's what happened.
Also, there
I mean,
were,
I
there were
you
5
know,
or 60 last year.
I
There's
mean,
a difference when
last
16
year,
wins.
last
and
year's
talk about
Super
it.
Bowl it was 100% a conversation.
Okay.
Was it not? Am I making this up? Anyone?
with the
Every single year, there's one play that happens that people talk about in every single playoff game. Correct.
So I'm right.
What was the debatable thing?
No, I'm just saying last year there was a lot of 49ers fans complaining about the way that game was called.
I don't.
I was sitting with two. I was sitting with two of them at the game.
I was watching. They
The
didn't.
big
get a
thing
coin
was
toss.
they weren't calling the holdings or whatever
The whole game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and the false starts.
and
The
yeah.
false
They didn't
starts
call it
every
for
time
either.
on the tackle. Every
Yeah,
single
that
play.
was a thing.
I mean,
but-
it's been a thing, and so
Okay.
I just want to. It's fine. If I know how you feel. Do you guys both agree that this ref thing only started this year? And then we can
No,
move on. And we
again,
can.
not
I can
what we're-
go
not
take a
what we're
look.
saying.
I think
It got
we bring
crushed
it.
this year.
I think.
I didn't say it was not a factor ever.
Yeah, I definitely don't
said
think
it-
it
they
was.
said
It
year
was
was a
not a
bigger-
narrative until this year.
Narrative meaning it's such an impact to every time we talk about it, not just a joke.
It's not
Those
what
are
a
two
narrative
different
means.
things.
I think I agree
not
with
what that
Ryan.
means.
I think
I
we've
think the
been
impact on
talking
it,
about.
the way you're describing it, is way different than what it was last year. That's
yeah,
how
I think
I'm
you guys are
explaining.
talking about almost two different.
Oh, it's much
things.
worse this year, but this is not the first year.
But
This
not
is,
I
even.
agree with
It's
that.
not. Last year it wasn't even like a thought. It was maybe
Wrong.
once. Okay.
No, what do you think, Mario?
It's
And
an
then
opinion.
We can
but
move
you
on.
can have your own.
Personally, I think it definitely was a talking point, but I kind of think of it as like, in terms of issues that are like prevalent or whatever. Like Chiefs every game this year, number one trending thing after every Chiefs game will be like refereeing.
100%.
Whereas like last year, it was probably like fourth, fifth, sixth. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was definitely like lower, and it wasn't like
Oh, it's definitely
and it-
more in
and
the
it
public
wasn't
eye
like-
now because
and
I
it-
think they're continuing.
and it wasn't
to
like the frequency that it's happened. Like last year, it may have just been like Super Bowl. They handled the Ravens, so it wasn't in that game,
Yeah.
and like maybe like.
Handled the Bills, handled the Dolphins.
And maybe it wasn't like, and maybe like a spot or two in the regular season. Like probably like to be realistic, maybe like 2-3 games last year. Whereas this year, it's like astronomically increased.
It's
So
just a
what
bigger
you're saying-
joke.
It's gotten way worse this year.
100%
So it's
agree
been
with
a- it's
everything
been a
you've
topic.
said.
So I could
Same here.
easily see why people think like it wasn't really a thing last year. The only thing I could really remember was last year, like there was on Twitter, and Twitter can make everything look bad, whatever.
For
But
sure.
there were a bunch of like compilations of like missed holding calls that they weren't calling.
Oh yeah, and
You
the
know,
false start thing.
And
I
the
mean, it's
false
just been a
The
trope
entire-
for
every game.
That
for
was like
Chiefs
the only
fans.
thing
Every
that
game.
really comes to mind.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think you guys are both kind of right.
Yeah,
For sure. Well, yeah. I mean, we get to watch more Chiefs football, so I guess we'll be able to watch and see next week.
Yeah.
Stay locked in with us. We're recapping every game and picking the games for this coming weekend
Yeah.
for conference championships.